It's interesting that it's Dan Hilton and band.
Yeah.
Like just looking at how the musical entity is described on the cover of each.
Yeah, and I think it's been a good move, and it's a great place to be when you feel like the most recent thing you've done is the best. And I suppose, what am I going to say? But it's true.
Now on the one sheet, the band is described as a craft pop quartet. Yeah. Has it always been equally a craft pop quartet across these three different manifestations, or is that what it's just become?
I referred to it as craft pop. It's a genre I'm trying to pioneer. When I did my solo recording, I did at that time, and I think for me it was sort of a nod to craft beer.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like what distinguishes that from macro brews, and that as being like craft pop, and the idea of there was once a review we had. This is back in the old days, but it was something and it's a defunct publication now that was called Minnesota Sound. But it was they said something about nurturing each individual track as if it were an only child. It was like, yes, that is like exactly the way you think of it. It's like there's no layer in this song, no instant in this song is mailed in. It's like you're thinking like, what can we do to artistically approach this little contribution to the song, so like nothing's an accident.
Yes, yeah. So there's 6 songs on the EP, and they have quite different flavors. And I understand that in the run-up to the release, your fans were given the option they could vote for which they would like to hear, and
as a preview.
As a preview, with names like the trumpet pop song, the disco song, the mini in all caps rock opera, so very small but very big capitals. But
4-minute rock opera.
4-minute rock opera, yeah, exactly. So those titles, not the song titles, but those ways of describing the songs. At what stage in the process of working on each song did you come to kind of conceptualize the songs in this way and think, well, that's this is like the furious, or this is the hell that we're creating with the surly analogy.
Right.
How did you end up? Because these are 6 quite distinct sounding songs. They have had that different treatment.
Yeah.
How did you ensure that they did end up?
I think the only one I would have articulated specifically and like pigeonholed as something is the disco song, which was a song that had existed for 2 or 3 years. And we were playing it more as a straight-ahead rock song, and it was just one of those moments in practice where people are having fun, and Mark starts, doing the, and they're got a disco beat going, and suddenly, and it was right before that song was up in the lineup of what we were in practice, and I was like, I want you guys to do that for when you pull through. And like, I wanted to go all out disco, so Mark does that little boom, 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 that bass kick off, and it's like that's the thing that sort of establishes that's what you're about to hear. The thing with that song is interesting, or I think interesting, but it's that the subject matter is really heavy. It's a love song about being in a relationship with somebody who's suffering from chronic depression.
Yeah.
But it's a disco, and there's something about that I'm hoping that kind of gives it a little bit of lightness, and it's a positive message in the song, but that's the only one where I think I would have said that's the disco song. Everything else was just a matter of that's just you let the song go where it wants to go and it ends up. I think maybe Last Angry Blacksmith, I had an idea early on in the writing of that song. I was thinking of Bob Dylan's The Hurricane, so like when you think of ballad not as like journey ballad, but like ballad that's like the story ballad, more like, Marty Robbins ballad sort of.
Okay, yes.
That sort of like a story, and it was a big departure for me lyrically too, where this one literally was a guy coming up to me after the show and saying, I have a great idea for a song, which it can be something that you dread as a songwriter, to hear that, because he's going to be like, you should write a song about, these people we work with. But this was like legitimately a great idea, and so I took more of a Decemberist, like I'm just gonna put myself in like the first position as this last angry blacksmith, and what would he be thinking? And it was supposed to sound a lot more like just sort of a bar, just grungy bar band sound.
Yeah.
And so I guess that was another one where I had a specific idea going in.
Okay, those two. So you told me in advance that the last Angry Blacksmith, the genesis of that song was someone coming up to you before, after a show, with the song idea.
Yeah.
How did this? Where was the show? What was the context? How was the idea initially communicated to you?
I'm pretty sure it was. Incidentally, it was at the Acadia.
Okay, which is where you're going to do your record release on Saturday, November 4th.
Yeah. It's a guy that, one of those friends/fans. He was there at a string of shows, and afterwards, he says the words to me quite literally. He's like, I have a great idea for a song, and inside I'm panicking. Like, what do you say in response to this? And he's like, I was thinking, what if there was like this last angry blacksmith, and like, what would he be thinking, what would he be feeling? I was like, that's like a great idea for a song.
Yeah. So what is the last angry blacksmith, either according to him or as fleshed out in the song?
Last angry blacksmith is this guy that's just sitting around pissed off because of the rise of the automobile, and he has a craft that he can't ply anymore, and he's just in a rage.
It struck me that the vocal delivery on this song, The Last Angry Blacksmith, is quite different. I mean, it's varied throughout the record, but this I think is the most distinct. And I just wondered how, either through that means and or through other means, how the idea of how the character and the psychological state of this character is being conveyed through the song.
So I like that you're referring to it as a character. So one of the reasons I was out of music for 10 years is I was actually starting a theater company. So
really?
One of my past things, like I acted, and so there was a way in which this is like a fun acting job, and this is like a script. So I enjoy playing this character. I don't know how this happened. Somehow I ended up getting this, and I think I actually did it in the recording too, but it's like, he finishes this line about roads out to the west. Before that was the horse trail and the railroad track. Like that, the bullwhip sort of thing going. But I really try to get into that character when we perform the song live, and just furious at the end. So I was definitely trying to, almost from an acting standpoint, inhabit the character. For the performance in the song.
Is this the one song where that's happening, or in a subtler way, without character? So this is the song where a character has a name, or at least there's a character type, and the title of the song announces the last angry. Who you are encountering right now is the last angry blacksmith. The other songs don't do that. But do you feel that there is a kind of theatrical component? Are you performing roles in the other songs as well?
So I would say the other songs are all sort of my general MO, which is very introspective, very personal to me. So all the rest of the songs are kind of my own perspective. But that said, I think, it wasn't like a specific goal going into the song, but I think I did end up having an intentionally specific sort of vocal approach when I was doing each song. So
can you recall another song in particular where that really struck you and you were kind of implementing? This is the style that I need.
Sure. So Frost is the second to the last song.
There's next song after The Last Angry Blacksmith actually, and I think the starkest contrast. Okay.
So it builds up. It's very sort of intimate at the beginning, and at the end builds up. And I think of Glenn Hansard a lot in terms of like vocal delivery and how he'll start a song very intimate and just be like rending his voice at the end, and that sort of thing. That's a style that appeals to me. In Frost, I had this idea that, and there's also you remember how they used to, like, a greatest hits in the liner notes, there'd be someone that would write an intro, and there'd be like someone that thinks that artist is like the greatest thing ever. And I have a Jim Reeves compilation. And the guy was talking about how Jim Reeves back in an era of country music where everyone was rocking and rolling, he would get up into the mic with, and the words he used was with an almost embarrassing intimacy. And I was thinking of that.
Wow.
So like
Yeah,
I wanted on Frost to be so close to the mic that you could like hear the
Your breath?
smacking,
Yeah.
the clicking, it sounds kind of gross here, but
Yeah.
in terms of like, you know, the intimacy of the delivery and the breath and everything. And so it was like, how close can I get to a whisper without the singing becoming a whisper? And then, you know, obviously then on a separate track, recording the vocals when they escalate at the end.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I would say that like, that would be a specific, like, here's how I'm going to approach this song. And so I was aware as the different songs were happening that the vocals were going to come out quite a bit different, like much less than in the last couple recordings. This EP was just, I think we felt some of that with the collaboration and the time we were spending and everybody getting more comfortable with each other. There was a lot more, we were not as afraid to try stuff.
Yeah, that explains some of the, my sense of, I love how there is such a contrast between those two songs, and just thinking about the way in which the vocals were tracked, or the attitude towards the vocals for the two. But on the one hand, that it's very performative, like it's not yeehaw. It is yeehaw.
Well, kind of. And the other thing on Blacksmith is, in that one, I was like, let's leave off the reverb.
Right.
Everything except there's like a middle 8 section where like the reverb's really heavy.
Yeah.
It's like there's something about it I thought would be like an old black and white photo if it was just dry as hell and just dusty and dry and just like no reverb on the guitar, no reverb on the vocals, just dry and raw.
Yeah.
Like a raw throat from screaming.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, wow. And then so you go from that to his living, breathing Dan, you know, an attempt to go from a character that very much isn't you to that almost embarrassing intimacy.
Yeah.
You know, this is the particular sound that my mouth makes just before I start to sing.
Just before I kiss you.
Yeah, right. It's like that
Moving
kind of thing.
in.
Yeah. And so that was that Glenn Hansard? Was that, were you referencing Glenn Hansard as
more of the escalation during a song where it can start out really intimate and then be screaming at the end. And he does that a lot, and like playing the guitar, and so one of the things that has continued, it's not throughout, so it was I played an electric guitar and tearing it all down, but generally I'm on acoustic for rhythm.
Sure.
And so I take a certain amount of pride that like some of our songs can really get moving even with acoustic, as the rhythm is just but like hands are just sort of pounding away on the, you know, I know when you play live, you're down on your knees and writhing with
my acoustic guitar.
We have this bit at the end of the 4-minute rock opera where at the the final note you like fall down, and I want to do this at the release, but we won't do it because it's at the end of the whole show. It doesn't seem appropriate, but you like fall down and you're like down on the ground and just laying there, and Aaron's supposed to park like, is there a doctor in the house? He blew his own mind.
We'll have to see you another time where that song will go in the middle of the set.
Actually get a sort of a pre-planned person out there with a doctor coat, they can run onto the stage. He blew his own mind.
There we go. So Saturday the 4th of November, and on future occasions for it to become increasingly theatrical.
We used to do that like in the old days. We would have these great theatrical bits, but we didn't understand anything else about performance. So there'd be this whole, I think, looking back, seeing old like VHS videos we made in the day, it's like these hilarious bits, but then in between everyone's just like nervous about being up there and standing in their shoes, and then we'd have some bit.
So there was
there's got to be sort of a medium there.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to experiencing that happy medium in practice on November 4th. So you referenced Glenn Hansard, and it says on the one sheet, I love this description of the band as somewhere between a slightly offbeat Glenn Hansard and a slightly upbeat Morrissey. And I think that the slightly upbeat Morrissey is a really good description, gives away a lot about the lyric the lyric writing, each of these songs is exploring some sometimes quite dark areas, some themes that Morrissey might explore. Chronic depression is the theme of the disco song, for example, When You Pull Through. But I feel like the treatment in particular of chronic depression is quite different from, say, Morrissey's treatment. Hence, I think perhaps the slightly upbeat Morrissey. So can you reflect further perhaps with that example or with other examples on the slightly upbeat Morrissey? I think that's very descriptive. How so, in your opinion?
I think I would say that I don't tend to wallow in songs, even if I'm covering even if I'm covering heavier topics. So I mean, this is just one instance, but in Will You Pull Through, it's not trying to be prescriptive or anything like that either, and it's
explicitly not. Actually.
But for me, it's one of the biggest realizations I had somewhere along the way was like, it's not my job to fix this. It's just my job to be here.
Be there.
And so just, I can't truly get, what you're going through, but I'll still be here, and that's So I guess, I don't tend to think of Morrissey as writing just like love songs. And I do tend to write those. I think hopefully my intent is to approach them in a way that they're not like, you don't think of them as a love song. It's just it's sort of like I'm conveying this feeling, and I have a specific thought about it. It's like there was a Green Colored Eyes that was on The Secret of Him. Yeah. That was often a song we start our shows with. That was a song about my wife Sharon, and it was just kind of I just thought it was like, it's a more mature love song. It's not like a infatuation, which is like as soon as it's not about infatuation and sort of like the early moments of a relationship, you're not like 95% of and love songs that are out there.
Morrissey is the 5% even before then. The closer I get, the more you ignore me.
Yeah. So, and I thought actually that one which is a great song,
that is
but that
a very
was
great song.
His last Angry Blacksmith, kind of in that like he's inhabiting something that I hope that's not him as himself. I think he's just being like, oh, that's what it'd be like if I wrote a song as a stalker. So, right. But yeah, so like Green Colored Eyes is just kind of about, having this realization a number of years into a relationship about the things that still kind of make it new and are special and just it was kind of from a new era. I felt like when I came back into music, my approach to lyric writing was so much different than when I was younger, where I was just fighting against it and hiding behind like, how can I obscure what I'm really talking about through unnecessary metaphor?
Yeah, to make it artistic.
There was something like that going on. It was in my 20s, and then now it's like, I got something to say, I'm just going to say it. And so I think if anything now it's like earnestness, and there's very little, like if you read the lyrics, you'll probably understand exactly what it's about. And if you don't, hit me up. I'm happy to talk about it and tell you exactly what it's about. I'm not gonna tell you it's open to your interpretation. You can interpret it and have it mean what you want to in your life, but I'll tell you what I was thinking when I wrote it.
Yeah, that's interesting that this image of you having a conversation with someone, explaining what the song is about, should they want to know, should they not?
That would be like my favorite thing. That's my idea of a good time.
Yeah, right. And according to MN Music Media again, the lyrics have this capacity to make people feel like they just had a conversation with a really good friend. So there is, I think, by now we're kind of grasping like two of the most distinctive qualities of the lyrics. So on the one hand, there is this intimacy, not just like a sense of intimacy, like, for there to be intimacy, there needs to be two people. One, although we can create the effect of intimacy, like as a vocalist on the mic, what we're creating there is a sense of you being present with the listener. We can even hear your breaths and stuff. So there's a real intimacy, I think, in the fullest sense of there being a connection, like a connection where someone is opening up and there's a friendliness, a conversation with a really good friend. You're there for us in the song, and addressing us, and there's a real human connection, which makes The Last Angry Blacksmith like an interesting exception to prove the rule.
Yeah, it is a total exception.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think it's, I mentioned that thing about at a younger age just kind of staring at the shoes, and I think some of that actually feeling like I'm saying something, I have something to say, has enabled me to be a lot more, I'm very comfortable on stage these days, and I like to sort of, I think about, and it can be tough, right? You've been playing the same song umpteen times, and every time you get up in front of someone, you're thinking like, what was I thinking when I wrote this song, and what does it mean, and how am I going to convey that
on this occasion,
when I'm playing this in front of people?
On this 10th occasion,
and especially when the mood dramatically changes from one song to the next, because I would say in this recording, Tearing It All Down is a much lighter tone, even though it's still, personal message. It's a much lighter tone than most of the other material.
Yeah, so that's the second track. There's a lighter tone, but there is a, if not heavy, then serious message. Sure. With most of these songs. So this is the other component. So I said there's two components. There's a sense of intimacy, like you're here, whether it's on the stage or whether it's on the record in the studio, and you're saying something. You've got something to say, and you're saying it to me. If I'm listening, then you're saying it to me. So that's the one thing. But at the same time, there is something about life that you want to communicate, and the song will have succeeded on some level if that message has got across. So
I like that thesis.
So my thesis about your thesis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there's a guy named Tom Jackson who's like a live music producer. Are you familiar with him?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay. So he does a great job of just kind of explaining like how to be more comfortable on stage, and how you just, there's all these people that are producing your music in the studio, and then like bands just get up there and just bore people because like all their songs are presented in the same way. And
unadorned.
Yeah. And he talks about how people don't go out to live music. I mean, it's, there's music heads that are out there because, they know all the songs, they care about all the songs, and they're listening specifically for that. But most of the people that are out watching live music are there for musical moments. Yeah. Like, they're not going to say, like, oh, that third song when they're thinking like, do you remember what was happening in that moment when like all of a sudden he told that story about this powerful moment, and the room quieted down, and then they start with this slow build to something. It's like you're creating an experience that person can take and remember the show from. And so I think about that a lot, and so to the extent that you have a musical moment you want to create for someone, you're going to try to make a connection, because the connection is where that is going to happen. So I'm going to maybe, and sometimes people don't want to sit there and hear you talk for 2 minutes in between every song, but you can sort of pick your moments as like, I'm going all in on these couple songs tonight, and we're going to have a moment and sort of talk about what's going on here, and here's going to be the way that we're going to present that. Yeah.
Which are the songs on this EP where you feel most inclined to clarify what the song is about or trying to communicate? And is it always before, or is it sometimes like after you perform the song?
I think it can be helpful to happen before, because you just know people, give them a chance to know what they're in for, rather than tell them like, here's what you just missed. I haven't specifically sort of diagrammed the way we're gonna approach. There's a lot of moving pieces to the release show. We have like 7 guest musicians joining us, so it's kind of like your own wedding, where like there's a lot of moving pieces, but you don't want to forget to experience the night. Sure. I'm a little worried about all the people we're moving in and out, and it's a tiny little stage there, so we're sort of in. So I got all that going on. I know we're going to want to really hit Failing Fearlessly, so we actually have a chorus of 3 singers that are joining us for the show, specifically just for that song. And so I'm hoping to really kind of live in the end, which we're going to extend a little bit in that song. And you know, the video will have just come out, and so it's the song that, you know, a number of people might be familiar with going into it. So we'll probably have a little moment before that song comes up. I would love to pull down a screen and like show the video. Yeah. But that's just another moving piece that we don't
literally
need.
Moving.
Yeah. And other than that, I guess it probably Frost, just because it's this show is going to be pretty upbeat. Through, like, it's gonna be really moving along, and that's gonna be a moment of really just, you know, I sometimes say the, you know, 6 worst words in rock music. Now we're gonna slow things down. But you know, we've got a couple moments, and it's like in going back to like acting, you know, you talk about beats in a scene where there's sort of like something happens and there's kind of a, you know, a lull, and you know, energy drops and back up, and so that's in a set. You know, some of those where you're going to have a quieter song, and especially if you're not doing it a ton, that can be a great opportunity to like, okay, now that I've got your attention, or like you can actually hear me over the, you know, commotion, here's what's going to happen. So
that seems, so we make sure that it's quiet for this particular act of communication, the performance of the song Frost. What is and if each of these songs has a thesis, what is the thesis? What's the message of Frost, and how does it relate to the sparser sound?